What's up, everybody? You know, for a really long time, it was important for me in my relationships to always be right. Didn't matter what it was. I just wanted to be right. I don't know if it's some sense of ego or pride or whatever it was. I didn't care about the relationship being well as much as I cared about me being right within the relationship. Then when I got married, I realized that ain't the move, bruh. It is way more important for me to have a right standing with my wife and have peace than for me to be right. We're going to dive into that and all the possible scenarios that can come from it. We hope you guys enjoy it. Follow us on all the places. Subscribe, YouTube, podcast. We love you so much and appreciate you guys rocking with us. Here's Nights at the Round Table. And welcome to another episode of Nights at the Round Table. Tis your boy, Man Weezy, and we got the queen to the left, Be Real on the right.
Yay.
Everything is going grand. We have this rabble that we're drinking. This rabble.
This is a great wine, especially for the price point too. This is like a $11 to $13 price point.
Yes, at Costco. Come through Costco.
And what's so cool about this wine is if you download the app, on the front there's this like amazing visual, but that visual comes to life with the app. It's sort of like the 19 Crimes thing.
No way.
And you get to see this whole picture unfold before you. But this is good because I prefer non-dry-ish wines. So to me, this has this like real like juicy, flavorful palate
Sweeter.
here.
I love their little slogan at the end, in the back of the bottle. They say, "We cannot command nature except by obeying her."
Ooh.
That's dope.
That's spiritual.
That's very spiritual.
That's a word.
Let that sink into your spirit.
That's a word. Receive it. Ho.
Hey, you know what else I want to sink in your spirit? This episode. This episode we dealing with, is it worth being right or having right relationship? What I mean by this, let me tell you something. Within a relationship, there is going to be arguments and disagreements. It's going to happen. That's what love is.
Yeah.
Love is arguing and then getting over it. But for a long time, there was this incessant need to be right. I talked to a lot of couples, and the need to be right usually prevails over the need for peace. And I don't understand it until I started hearing people talk. And I think the reason there's this incessant need to be right is because if we admit that we are wrong or that our viewpoint is wrong, that we somehow believe that we give more power over to the other person than we currently have, thereby putting us as the weaker of the two. And being the weaker of the two now means that that person has one up on you moving forward. That presents two problems. One, it presents a inability for you to recognize the pride in your life. Two, it shows that you do not have trust in your partner to be able to hold space for you even when you're wrong. That you think that they're going to, when they get the chance, that they're going to throw it in your face to win this proverbial race of being right. And so I think we chase the idea of being right for, and it sounds weird, but for power and because of insecurity. That's literally my thesis in this topic. That's what I think it's all about. What do you think?
I had a question. Do you think I treat you? What was one thing you just said something right now? I go, I wonder if I do that to him. Do I put it in your face? What is the thing you just said about that you don't trust your partner enough?
That if I admit I am wrong in something, that it's gonna come back to bite me in the ass.
Well, that I don't trust my partner enough to that they're not gonna like throw it back in my face, right?
Yeah.
Do I do that to you? Do I throw it back in your face?
Sometimes, but I don't care because I don't mind admitting that I'm wrong.
But I do that.
Sometimes. Yeah. To win an argument.
Okay.
You like to win arguments, though.
I do.
You do like to win arguments. So that's a thing that I know. Because remember that one time we had an argument about, remember? Remember?
What time?
Oh, man.
Which one?
He's coming back. His Rolodex of arguments.
Yeah. What year?
I'm trying to remember that one where you literally went back.
What city were we in?
On your word. Like, Oh, I'm gonna think about it. I can't think of the specific time, but you literally made like you made a rule that was why you were upset with me. And then when that rule got applied to you, you changed the rule so that it could fit your situation. And then I had to call you out and I said, babe, wait a minute. You made the rule A last week when I did it. But now in week 2, you're changing that rule
Proof or it didn't happen.
because it applies to you.
Receipts.
And I was like, and you laughed, remember?
I'm gonna need
Oh my
you to
God,
tag me
I
in
need
that.
to remember this damn
please.
argument.
Tag
need
me
to-
in that. Send it to my DM because I do not remember this.
Oh my gosh. Look, okay, well then, you know, and I don't mind it because look, for some reason, okay, for a long time, I have such a strong opinion and a strong sense of conversation that it can appear at times that I need to be right. Right?
I think if you were to ask any of like your past people in your past,
Yeah.
if they were to have heard what you just said right now, they'd be like, "She wants to be right," because that was a attribute of yours.
Here's the thing
before.
I know about myself, though. I tend to play devil's advocate a lot because I like being on both sides of things so I can find myself in the middle. I like considering both sides of the argument so that I'm not a one-sided individual. So when I make certain arguments, I think it comes off as liking to be argumentative. But the way I know I don't like to be argumentative or I don't need to be right is that when the argument is done, I'm not like pissed that I didn't win. Regarding you, the only time I'm upset is when it's something that I'm saying that is good for me. So if I'm trying to get you to see something that's important to me,
Okay.
which is not a right or wrong issue,
Right.
right? It tends to end up becoming a right or wrong issue because I don't know if you guys listening, if your husband or your wife does this, but there can be a problem that you bring up that you would like your significant other to acknowledge that this is happening.
Mm-hmm.
And they inevitably make it a you against them thing as opposed to a we thing. To me, whenever me and Ange get into something, I always see it as a we thing. I always see it as if we can get this right, we will be stronger.
But we getting this right is usually me having to fix something.
Okay, but wait.
So that's why it feels like you against me.
Okay, but here's your chance to be honest. Here's your chance to be honest. In our past, when I brought up something, am I out of bounds? Am I making stuff up when I bring it up?
No.
No. I rarely ever argue without knowing I have a good point.
Mm-hmm.
I don't bring it up. I let a lot of things slide because a lot of things don't mean nothing to me. But when I call something out, it's usually because I have enough evidence to show you, hey, this is really happening.
Right. And you're real good at recalling evidence. I am not good at recalling evidence. It's so funny because Manny has like the worst memory when it comes to like, hey, remember that one time when we went to blah, blah, blah and so was there? No, I don't remember that. Do you remember my cousin? What's his name? I don't know his name. Like, worst memory. But then if we're in an argument, all of a sudden everything in your memory comes flooding back and you're able to just recite it like like a machine gun.
That's
like
because there's only a certain amount of room within our mind that takes up space, and I choose not to use it on
That's how it
people
feels.
that I'm never going to talk to again.
That's how your evidence feels like this. That's how your evidence feels.
But hey, keep it 100.
But it's
Stop
true
lying to
evidence.
Thank you. Stop lying
But
to
it's
these
true
people.
evidence. That don't mean the bullets don't sting.
They sting because I'm saying something real. Look, there was a point in my time where I really only cared about being right when it came to arguing in relationships. I just wanted to be right because I had this I don't know, I was addicted to wanting to be right.
Why would you say that is? Like, what was it about being right that kind of got you off?
It proved that I was smart. It proved that I had a handle of the situation. Like I was assessing the situation correctly. And that made me feel good.
Was it because there was an insecurity of you not being perceived as smart? And that's why you wanted that to be so smart or to be seen as being smart?
I think it's an insecurity of me wanting to be good at everything.
Gotcha.
If I do something, I want to be awesome at it. If I'm doing a podcast, I want to be the best podcaster. And you know it. Anything that I do, I don't do anything half-assed. I want to be the best. So when I decided to get in a relationship, no matter what relationship it is, I want to be the best at that relationship. Being the best means being on my A game on everything. So if it's recalling a certain thing, and mind you, I don't like, and my wife always gets mad. She gets mad when I say I don't like arguing. And she says, you love to argue. And I'm like, I don't love to argue.
You excel at it.
I just happen to be around people who have strong opinions as well. I don't see it as arguments. I don't like to argue with her. I hate arguing with her. But there are times when if I don't address an issue, my fear is that unchecked, it's going to turn into something worse.
Yeah.
And if I don't address it, it's gonna eventually blow up because I can only take so much. So I have to freaking whatever. And I'm not trying to make you out to be a horrible person. You're not. It's just certain things.
I know.
So what would you say is the difference between it being an argument or not, even though the same words are exchanged?
Okay, so
is the difference in your intention or your motive behind it, or is it in the context in which you bring these things up? Like, where is the differentiating line between argument and
Talkaments. He calls them talkaments.
Heated conversation is...
Okay, so the definition of argument is an exchange of diverging or opposite views, typically a heated or angry one. A reason or set of reasons given with an aim of persuading others that an action or idea is right or wrong.
Yeah.
Okay, so when I see an argument, this is interesting. An action or idea given the aim of persuading others that an action or idea is right or wrong. So when it comes to relationships, this is something that I learned. It didn't matter if Ange was right or wrong in a situation. It mattered how she felt. And I'm so logical that there would be arguments that we get in and she would just tell me her feelings. And I would ask her, give me examples. I need examples because I'm a fix-it guy. If you tell me something is wrong or I did something wrong, I want to fix it. So if you can point out what I did, then I watch how amazing I'm going to be because I'm going to fix it and it'll never happen again.
I feel that.
So when she comes with feelings, I translate that to now it's manipulation. Because you're telling me you feel something, you cannot give me the reasons why you feel it, and you cannot give me an example of when I made you feel that way. Or how did I make you feel that way? So now you're just literally telling me, you make me feel like this. And I say, how? Why? What did I do? I just feel it. Well, then you point out a problem that is impossible to solve. And it's based on a thing that we can never trust, our feelings. 1 minute we're going to feel this way. The next minute we're going to feel another way. So that's not a good way to base attributes of change or wanting your partner to change. To me, I can't argue her truth. I can say, man, this doesn't make sense. But at the end of the day, if I care about her, I have to meet her where she is at.
I don't want to say you can never trust your feelings. I think
I
think your feelings could definitely guide you.
Yeah.
It's getting to the next step of articulating the hows and whys and all of that, which takes a lot of self-awareness. It takes a lot of work, deep inner work, to figure some things out. Because sure, there may be things that someone is projecting onto you. You make me feel like this. How? I don't know. And maybe it's the person doesn't actually make you feel like that, but you're projecting something onto them. And then maybe there's times, and maybe it's with us, maybe it's just other situations, but where I know there's definitely times where I feel a certain way and I can't figure out why, but I know it's valid and I know it's guiding me to something. And maybe I will get to it. Actually, it has nothing to do with you, and it has everything to do with my dad and the way he treated me, but the way that you're talking to me reminds me of when he used to demean me and blah, 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 blah. So, but that takes a lot of work to, one, even think like that, but to get yourself out of the present feeling of hurt and like, ow, this is hurting. And I don't know why. Let me, in my mind, rationalize this and go to how my dad made. Like, that actually takes work and courage to do.
Sure.
Do you find it difficult, Ange, to connect with what you're feeling and the things that trigger you to get to that feeling? So, for example, like, obviously here in this example of like in this hypothetical argument, or not hypothetical argument, talkament, we're in this place and you're like, hey, I feel like, is it hard for you to understand what got you to that place of feeling, would you say?
Sometimes, and I'm learning again because I'm doing like a lot of self-work right now. I'm learning, like, okay, a good example. The other day I was in the shower, did a lot of my best thinking in the shower.
Amen.
A lot of good joke writing in the shower too. But so I'm in the shower and I'm thinking about this situation that made me upset. Like, somebody that I knew made a mistake. Everybody makes mistakes in their life. But in my mind, I wanted to like harp on the mistake. Be like, oh, that was so dumb. Like, and in my like replay of it or even imagination of it, I was making this person feel dumb because I was angry about the mistake that they made, right? And I had to stop and be like, why am I doing that? Why in my imagination do I want this person to feel dumb? And I started doing my exercises that I've been learning about, going in and talking to my inner child. And it kind of makes me emotional right now because I started remembering when I was young, and if I would make a mistake, I was made to feel dumb about it. And I was taking that hurt and putting it on this person in my imagination because I wanted them to hurt because I feel hurt. Because if I make a mistake, I'm dumb. So if you make a mistake, you're dumb. And I had to stop and be like, no, I don't want to do that anymore. And I feel like a lot of times that's what happens, like in our arguments or whatever. I feel dumb. And I feel like even if you're not saying the words, you're dumb, I feel it, you're dumb.
Yeah.
Because whatever, when I was a kid, I would be made to feel dumb by whoever, by my sister or my dad or whoever it may be. And so I'm learning and talking, reparenting my inner child, being like, hey, it's okay. Everybody makes mistakes. Like, you were young and you were okay. And talking to myself, it was okay that you made a mistake. And you learn from those mistakes, and having to talk to myself so that I don't treat people like that anymore. And that was just like last week in the shower.
Wow.
So I'm constantly learning, but I didn't have that tool before I was doing all this inner work to know to like stop in the moment and be like, okay, why? Go deeper and uncover all of that.
Yeah.
And not everybody has those tools, and it takes work.
Yeah, it takes time. I know for me and Maddie, like, there is kind of this like one, and it's not even an argument, it's just a serious conversation because it's so heavy and it's so deep. And it's been this one that's kind of been reoccurring in our marriage. And there always comes like a couple months and we just like, we have this conversation. And just this last time that we had it, there was like such a breakthrough. And it was probably like one of the most vulnerable conversations we've ever had. We were both literally just laying on our bed and we were just both just weeping. like it was one of those moments where we felt like there was such a space between us. You know, those moments where you're like laying down with your spouse, your partner, whoever it is, and it feels like there's like a touchdown between both of you guys, or not a touchdown, but a football field, where it just feels like we are here in this queen size bed, but you feel 100 yards away from me.
Yep.
And we're both weeping and stuff. And it was interesting because with Maddie, oftentimes it's hard for her to really process what she's feeling. And they used to frustrate the hell out of me because I was like, I'm quick. Like, I know exactly what I feel and why I feel it. And let me tell you why, you know. But for Maddie, it was like, I don't know. Like, let's revisit this conversation later. So I've learned, like, I've had to be a lot more patient in these conversations. As much as I would love to get to this final point a lot quicker, I realize that it's not going to happen just based off the way that she's wired. There's nothing she could change about that. And so for me, it's like, I have learned just recently, like, it's not even just good enough for me to just ask the question of like, hey, what can I do better to make you feel more, fill in the blank? Why are you feeling this way? What you're feeling? But even taking the moments of during like regular things that we're doing and trying to process with her on the spot, hey, are you feeling okay? Like, are you feeling good? What's going on through your mind? So not just in the moment that we're having this, trying to get her to track or trying to get me to understand where she's coming from, but then also taking these other random moments throughout our day and with just normal routine to ask her, hey, how are you feeling in this moment? Because if it's a little bit tougher for you to arrive at this place, I need to do a better job of understanding in just the wider or the broader range of things what you're feeling.
Yeah.
So
That's interesting. When and I don't like to say, P.S. I think you're doing such a better job. Just period. In life, I'm just talking about in life of processing your emotions and all that stuff. I just want to make sure that I acknowledge
Thanks,
that.
lover.
When you ask me what makes an argument and what not makes an argument, to me, when you try to persuade people to come on your side, for you to be right, when it's based on something that you cannot prove that right or wrong, that's when I think it's an argument, because the intention there is just to be right. With me, I don't consider me letting you know how I feel an argument, even though we may be on opposite sides of it. If I'm saying what you are doing is making me feel this certain way, then you could find yourself on the other side of it because you have not yet taken the time to try to understand my emotions, my feelings. You haven't walked my shoes. You haven't done the work to be like, this is my person. I need to try to understand how they feel. So just because we are on opposite sides of that, it doesn't mean it's an argument to me, because I'm not trying to persuade you to think that I'm right. I'm trying to persuade you to understand me. You're seeing that as me wanting to be right. I don't want to be right. I just want to be understood.
You want to be heard.
I want to be heard. So, we had a reoccurring argument for like 8-9 years of our marriage. And that had to do
We've
with...
been married for 9 years.
Sure.
Every year. What time is it?
I think we
this
just
time.
resolved it. I think we just resolved it this past year. So our
Amen.
our reoccurring argument was about our will, right? So my thing was, babe, if you die before me, everything should go to me. If I die before you, everything should go to me. If I die, everything should go to you. That's just how it should be. She gave me her list of everywhere she wanted money to go if she died. And I was like, this is a lot of money. And I'm not greedy or anything, but I was like, babe, look at our life and look at our circle. If either of us end up alone, there's no one taking care of us. We don't have rich benefactors. We don't have rich parents. We don't have no one. We got us. So if you were to die and you want me to shell out this insane amount of money to all these people, what happens if something happens to me? Are any of these people going to give that money back? Or the second we give this money to them, it's gone. It will be gone because it's going to be the most money they've ever had in their account. And then if something happens to me, I'm stuck. I can't go back to them and be like, hey, can I please have that money back? I kind of need it. And I know for damn sure, as much as they would want to, well-intentioned, help me, it's not going to happen. They're not going to choose me over them. They're not going to be like, oh, man, Manny's having a hard time right now. We should probably give this money back they gave us. So the foundation of it was I just wanted to be chosen above everyone else, because that's what I thought marriage was. When it comes to the Bible says that when you get married, you leave your mother and father. you basically turn from everyone, and it just becomes about that other
And
person.
leave and cleave.
Leave and cleave, and you become one. So when we're talking about this will, I'm like number 4 or 5 on the list. So Angie's point was, you'll have enough, you'll be okay. And my point was, how do you know? Most people in this country go bankrupt because of medical bills.
Mm-hmm.
One bad accident, we're broke. You keep thinking we have enough. We don't have Bill Gates money. We have money, but we don't have long money, is what I kept trying to tell her.
Yeah.
So in that time, she saw it as me wanting to be right. You needed to see my view. And she saw it as me not caring for other people or caring for whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But really what I was trying to get her to see was just, I want to be the most important thing in your life. Mm. And when and if you leave, the only concern in your head is, I want to make sure my babe is okay. If he's so fine, I trust him to then take care of my family if they need anything. And then that was the second caveat, was there wasn't that much trust that I would take care of her family if they needed something. Mm-hmm. So in that argument, I could be seen as wanting to be right. Because at the end of the day, the argument was, leave me all the money. That just seemed selfish. That's how I was being viewed at. That seemed selfish. We have more than enough. We should leave, whatever. And her point was, you want it your way. And the reason you want it your way is because of this, this, and this, and this. And my point was just, I just want to be number one. Don't you think that if we have more than enough money, if all of a sudden our net worth triples, but before we die, that I'm going to take care of everybody? That's what we do now. Mm-hmm. But that's what I mean by, it's not about being right in that. I just wanted right relationship. I just wanted the hierarchy of caring to be me first, everyone else second. Even though that seems really like cold, it's not when it comes to marriage. Yeah. Your priority is this person. So if the roles are reversed and I start making so much money, it doesn't matter. If I die, everything goes to her. And I fully trust her to take care of anyone and everyone that she wants to. If she wants to sell all of our houses and downgrade to a 1-bedroom apartment just so she can give money away to all her family, I'll be like, cool, do what you want. Because it's your choice. But if we put this shit in our will, I am legally mandatory. Like, I have to give these people this money, whether I want to or not. And that's going to leave me feeling real salty, especially after she's done, not knowing what the hell I'm going to come up against. Yeah. And if I end up getting in a car accident like I did 3 weeks ago, praise God, it was
easy fender bender.
Fender bender. That's what I'm saying, though. But when I was in my Del Sol, I got hit by an old guy. He was on medication. He didn't mean to. He did not brake, hit me going 60 miles an hour. Yeah. Luckily, I got out of it okay. I had some back, whatever, but it went away. But it takes somebody's irresponsibility to put me in a wheelchair. I'm in the hospital for 8 months. Our insurance only covers 85%. Do you know what 8 months in a hospital costs? You just paying the 15%, you're broke. At that point, you are broke.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's an example of a time where it's like, hey, these are like real ass conversations that I don't want to be right. I just feel at the end of the day,
you just want to be understood.
It has to be this idea of understanding, and that's when I feel like, even though there's a lot of things that I may disagree, and initially in our marriage, I was way more like, I wanted to be right. Because I just thought my ideas were better. That's literally what it was.
And now I just have trauma and scar tissue from that. So
just working through that.
You're wanting to be understood just sounds like you wanting to be right. Because I have trauma from your past.
No, but babe, be this is your time to be honest with people. Stop doing one-liners. When you call me out and I'm wrong at something, what happens?
You apologize.
And what happens?
And you fix it.
And what does it ever happen again?
No.
Thank you.
And what happens when I
talk about that though? Talk about that shit. Because I'm gonna remember that one girl that hit us up and she's like, I don't like how you talk to Angela. You did that. I'm like, Trick, you don't know us.
Thank you, follower.
You don't know us. I love on my queen. I dote on her. She's the best thing that's happened to me. But that's because you don't be speaking up.
What do you mean?
I need you to
him?
defend me, babe.
What is there to defend?
That
Defend you in this story
no,
of you.
defend me in that there's a lot of times that I'm wrong.
Right now, I can only.
No, but tell a lot of times that I'm wrong because I'm wrong a lot. There's been a lot of times I had to apologize. I made a lot of big mistakes, but I fixed them because at the end of the day, she's more important than me being right.
That's good. You know, there's also a sort of pride in thinking that you're always right. Like to me, it's almost comical to think about, like, yeah, I'm right all the time.
Yeah.
Because, like, you just even think about just the growth that's happened in your own life. Like, hopefully you don't believe the same things that you believed, like, when you were a kid. You know what I'm saying? Like, you believe that just stupid stuff. I was trying to think of an example, but it was way too vulgar. Anyways, you think you know how the world works, but apparently it doesn't work like that.
Yeah.
But I think the problem with always thinking you're right is you truly put a ceiling to the amount of growth that can happen in your life and change. Because we were just talking about this earlier, is if you think you're always right, what you were truly saying is that there's no room for growth in your life where you were at in this stage. Mm-hmm. Because you can only improve something if something goes wrong.
Right.
Because there's always a better way.
Yeah.
Right? So, like, if you made 5 shots in a row on a basketball court, right? You're like, oh, man, my shot's dope. Well, guess what? You can make 10 shots in a row. Mm-hmm. Your form might be good, but there's little tweaks that you can make, which little tweaks or little adjustments also means that you were wrong in some degree. Mm-hmm. It might not be a huge wrong, but it's a little wrong. And I think, too, man, if you open yourself up to the question, what if I am wrong? You all of a sudden now put yourself in a space where you could start to hear opposing views and things that might feel contradictory.
Yeah.
All of a sudden I can't talk. I've had too much wine. And so for that, all of a sudden you get to the point of view to see what that feels like and what that looks like.
Yeah. And it's good to be wrong. I loved it. Every time I was wrong in our marriage, I loved it. You want to know why? Here's why. On the opposite side of me being wrong, Angela ended up being more happy.
Yeah. Okay. That was it's funny to hear somebody say, I love being wrong. That just sounds silly. But
you know what I mean, though.
I explain what you mean.
So every time, as hard as it was to accept my fault in certain things, because nobody likes to be wrong.
Yeah.
When I look back at it, every time I've taken responsibility for me being wrong, doing something a wrong way. On the other side of that, not only did we get closer, but you ended up more happy. So when I say I love being wrong, that's not like a pseudo, I'm just trying to sound good for the mic. I'm literally saying it sucked being wrong. But when I admitted it and when I fixed it, and I took responsibility for it, on the other side of it, our relationship got stronger.
Yeah.
And you were happier.
And you're very awesome. Good at doing that. I can voice an issue that I have, and Manny will fix it immediately. And then he likes to say that when he voices an issue to me, he has to get through like a landmine of like bombs going off to which is true, but I'm working on it.
I don't like to say that. That's you said that. That's not me.
But no, it's like you said that's like getting through an obstacle course for me to finally hear.
Typically, yeah, we do
grievance.
have a long conversation before.
Well, because it'll be like Manny's trying to tell me his grievance with me, and I'm like, why do that? Because you do this.
Yeah.
And then I just bounce it back.
Speak about that, because I think a lot of people hide behind that.
Yeah.
Especially in relationships. You don't want to accept something that your partner is saying because all you're doing is holding wrong. Like the things that they did or the things that you feel that they've done to you. Mm-hmm. And you're using that to stop you from changing.
Yeah.
Or to stay right.
I definitely feel like it's pride, one. And the defensiveness and getting to the root of why that is. And a lot of times, I'm discovering a lot of times it has more to do with you triggering something in me that is not about you. and me having to learn my triggers and having to learn not to flip my lid when whatever you said or how you said it or whatever it is triggers me because of something else from my past or whatever it is. Again, that comes back to doing a lot of work to get there. So I'm sure there's some people listening right now that every time they get an argument and their husband or wife says, when you do this, that upsets me. And then they're thinking like, well, I only do this because you do this. And that's a very common thing to do. But to actually put down your pride and hear the person's grievance. And a lot of times it helps. Like there's times where I will hear Manny give advice to someone else about their relationship. And I'm usually the other person in that relationship, like when he's giving the advice. And then I get it when he's talking to someone else about someone else. I can see myself in that and I go, oh, okay. I was defensive when you were saying it to me, though.
Yeah.
But if you're talking to her, that'd be like, yes. Oh, that's me. Damn it. But sometimes it's easier to hear when it's not directed to you or at you or about you. Like, because I don't have
easier.
a defense.
Yeah.
I don't have skin in the game. This is not about me.
How many
Exactly.
times somebody has told you something that wasn't me, and it's something that I said years ago, and then you'll come home like it's a revelation, and I'll laugh at you. You'll be like, babe, I just learned, you know, and I'm thinking, and I'm just staring at her like.
Well, what do you think that is? Why is it easier to receive it on that end of it being this outside exterior thing rather than something that's like actually addressed to you? Does this have to do with like personal responsibility?
I'm the worst person to ask because I am so harsh when it comes to this. I feel like 100% is personal responsibility. Like you can have a past, you can have things that you go through, you can have all that stuff. But what I always tell her, at what point in our relationship do I become not the enemy? Because in my mind, I've already made up my mind who she is in my life. She may come at me sideways. She might say something in a little attitude. She might say whatever. But if she's speaking truth, I'm going to take it. Because I know she has earned the right to speak into my life because she cares about me.
Yeah.
I don't think she's ever telling me something to hurt me or to make me a worse man. So I don't listen how she says it. I'm not one of those people that's like, oh, but you screamed at me. Oh, but you said it like this. Oh, but you said it like this. Now, if she says something disrespectfully, I'll check her attitude. I'll be like, yo, that's disrespectful.
Yeah.
But in a heated argument, if she's telling me something that hurt her, that I did, I'm not checking her on the fact that she's screaming or she's whatever, or she's hurt or she's whatever. I was like, I did something, pissed her off. I'm going to hear what she's saying. And if she's speaking truth, I have to accept that. I have to, because I know I did it. So in the same way, I feel that at some point in your life, you have to make up your mind who that other person is in your life. Are they the person that has your back no matter what? Because if they are, then everything they say is going to be filtered through the idea of this person loves me.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter if it hurts what they're saying. They're not trying to hurt me. It's not in them. The problem is when you have somebody that says things to try to hurt you. Then you have a residue of that. So it's really hard to tell the difference. This is where I'm glad that I am not that person, which is what causes the most friction. Because there's never been a time where I've done something to her trying to hurt her.
Yeah.
I have inadvertently hurt her on accident. And the second I find out, I'm like, oh my God, I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
But I'm not the type of person that does stuff to try and hurt her. If I get super angry, I leave. I'll get in my car. I'll take a drive. I don't let out a slew of cuss words. I'm not like dissing her or calling her stupid or all these things that people say when they get really angry.
Right.
I don't do that. I give her a look. I give her a look like she knows we're going to get into it later. And it's not going to be into it like I'm going to scream at her. But I'm going to have a very stern conversation with her. And I leave. Because I know I don't want to have to come back and apologize for how I talked to her. Even recently, there's something that God really showed me. Like when we were having a conversation and she did some stuff. And I was right. I was 1000% right in what she did, right? And I pointed it out and I gave all the examples and I gave everything to which she had no choice but to admit I was right.
Mm-hmm.
In that dialogue, I was speaking about her in a way that was 100% factual and true. But it was 100% not positive. We all have negative shit about ourselves.
Absolutely.
I did not like the fact that I was pointing out truth about her that made her look bad. It hit me. Even though I was pointing out things that I wanted her to change so that it would help our relationship,
Mm-hmm.
I didn't like that I sounded like somebody that was talking bad about her. And I told her, babe, I'm never going to have a conversation like this with you again. Even though I know I'm right and I wish these things would change, I really do wish these certain things would change. When I hear myself talk, I'm sounding like I'm just pointing out all the bad that you are. And I don't like it at all. Even if you're doing it,
Mm-hmm.
even if you're acting like the worst part of you, I don't want to be the one that points it out because it goes against what I really feel about you, which is you're amazing. You're the love of my life. I love everything about you. There's just parts that I wish would change faster, but I can't let those parts become the narrative that I continually tell because I think eventually I may start believing it.
Mm-hmm.
And there's times where I've noticed in our arguments that I've tried to make it the narrative.
Yeah.
The ego in me has tried to make our relationship worse than what it is. But when I step back from it, I'm like, this is just about this and this, nigga. You don't really care.
Yeah.
You don't really care. You just wish that she would care more. But in actuality, you have enough strength to push through this.
Uh-huh.
You can get through this. You just want her to freaking get it. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
My fear, what I always tell her is, when is that strength going to wear out? That's the thing that scares me the most, is when am I going to hit that breaking point of like, whatever. And again, when I look at it, I'm like, even questions like that, I'm like, but my marriage is way more good than bad.
Yeah.
Like exponentially. Like we win way more than lose. I'm happy a good 95%, 5% unhappy. We like to make, as human beings, that 5% feel like it is everything.
Yeah.
And when I step back and I look at it, I'm like, nah, bruh, it's not everything. It's really not.
Yeah.
So that's why I lost the will to be right. Because I'm like, when it all comes down to it, there's so many more days that we look at each other and we're just like, I love you. I'm so grateful. Then there is like, God, I don't want to be around this person.
Yeah. You know, what's interesting is the mind is a powerful thing. So when we actually lack problems in our life, our mind will make up problems.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Especially when we're
sometimes,
hurt.
especially. So I think sometimes even in relationships, like it's so easy. What you were just saying is to highlight that 5% of like to make it a bigger deal than it really is. Now, again, every relationship is different, so I don't understand the context of this conversation that's been ongoing in your relationship. But at the same time, too, understanding like, man, there's a lot that's going on that's very good. Interesting thing of being right or being right in a relationship. If you haven't heard the pod on the subtle art of not giving a fuck, you should go listen to it because it's a conversation all about values.
Mm-hmm.
So saying, I want to be right in this relationship, that is a value that you are carrying.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now saying, hey, I want our relationship to be stronger. I want our connection to be deeper, our bond to be tighter, all these sorts of things. That is a value. One is a good value. One is a bad value. So again, looking at the conversations that you're having, the way that you're approaching it through the lenses of, am I trying to build this connection to a deeper, stronger place, or am I trying to be right? You know? And then, I mean, earlier, man, you said something that like, actually I thought about it and I asked myself, I was like, why do I like to be right? And it's not necessarily like an ego thing for me per se. I think I like to be right because it makes me feel like I assessed the situation correctly. It means that I'm like seeing things clearly, right? Like one of my biggest things is like, And I think it also connects with my weird. This is my like. When people ask me, "What's your guilty pleasure?" I'm like, cults. I love cults and drug lords. This is so random. Cults, like a
Like
cult.
Like to
baby-
look up
the baby-
documentaries
yeah,
on cults.
like cults. Like how,
Oh, CULT.
yeah,
I thought you meant COLT. I'm
Like
like,
little
you
horses?
the horses?
Indianapolis.
I'm like, when? You never told us.
but like I'm so fascinated how people can blindly follow things that are not
Sure.
based in reality, that are just like weird and crazy, and like to me that's so fascinating. But it's also linked to like one of my greatest fears is that like I would be in this place of being deceived.
Right.
Like thinking, you know what? I think I got a pretty firm grasp on reality, but actually finding out, like, oh shit, bro, you missed it by a lot.
Yeah.
So when we're in conversations, I think I want to be right because I'm like, I don't want to miss it. Like, I want to make sure
Sure.
I'm assessing things correctly. But at the same time, too, like, I've learned in some growing up and some maturity is that, like, that same thing that sensation that I like in being right, I can also find that same thing in being wrong.
Mm.
Because again, I think a good term for what's being healthy? Being healthy to me means you are dealing with reality on reality's terms.
Yeah.
So if I'm wrong, the reality is you weren't assessing the conversation, you weren't assessing this, whatever this is, correctly. So here, let me give you an opportunity to see things as they are. Like to me, like it's the toughest thing to put your ego down and put your ego aside. But if you can, being right and being wrong are both doors into growing deeper in this connection that you have with this person that you call special in your life.
Yeah. No, and here's the thing. If you're listening still at this point, or if you turn it off because you're pissed, if you choose right over right relationship, all you're doing is choosing self. That's when it comes down to it, that is all it is.
Yeah,
it's not an if you can let your ego down. You can let your ego down. The only difference is you don't care enough about the other person to let it down. Like, let's call it what it is. Don't bullshit yourself. If you rather be right than be in right relationship, all you are saying is, at this moment in my life, I care about myself more than the other person.
Yeah.
You like to think that you love them more than yourself, but you really don't. Because if you did, it don't matter the situation to a degree. Obviously, there are some things that are blatantly wrong that you may, that if it's not, how do you say, confirmed by the other side that you are right, i.e., if you stepped outside of your marriage and the other person didn't know, you know, if you straight up lied, you know, there's no like, okay, I'll be okay with you not admitting that you're wrong. There are certain things that you have to take for self-responsibility for, that if you are wrong, you are wrong. That's just healthy. But I think those things are obvious. We're talking about the things where it can go either way.
Yeah.
You both have good points. If all you care about is being right or winning that argument, then you just need to be honest with yourself and admit that at this moment in your life, what's more important is you. Because if you can't admit that, then you're never going to be able to progress past that ideology. Because this whole time you're going to be lying to yourself saying, I love them, I love them, I love them. I really do love them. I'll do anything for them. Don't say that. Don't say you'll do anything for them when you can't even like lose an argument. You can't even let yourself lose an argument or admit or take your pride down anyway. Because most of the times we know when we are wrong. We know it. We know that we're just arguing to try to win so that you won't be wrong.
Yeah.
And there's sometimes too where like I know how to avoid an argument. Like if you said something that bothered me and I could just let it go, and I'm decided I'm going to let it go. And then I start walking away, and then before I know it, these words come out of my mouth and I go, "Oh, damn it." And then now we're in an argument because I couldn't just let it go. I had this urge in me that's just say it under your breath at least. Just say it under your breath. And then you always hear it. You have like these robotic ears that you always hear it. And you're like, what'd you say? And I'm like, oh, damn it. Now we're in it. Forget it. No turning back.
And it's interesting. It's interesting because Ange just points out something that's so interesting. I always, she always.
As you pet me.
I
Because you're about to say, oh.
no, my lover. Look, no, because look, you remember we had this conversation once where she would always make fun of me to other people that I call them talkaments, that I call them just conversations.
Yeah.
And I remember one time I told her, I was like, babe, isn't that a plus that I consider that I look at these disagreements as something more positive than negative?
No.
It's a benefit to us because when you see them as something that'll make you grow, then you handle them with a different type of attitude. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
If I saw them as something that was so negative, like when you say it come out of your mouth, you 100% think it's negative. Okay, so that inadvertently, even just how you talking, you're like, dang it, now we're in. It's literally pushing that necessary conversation away because you are seeing it as negative.
Well, in
While
this
the other
scenario, finish what you're saying because you're making a good point. But
While
in
the
this
other-
scenario, it's different.
Right. But it's not because you can't just be one way.
Well, no, this was a pick and choose your battles. So it's not necessarily.
Sure.
This wasn't necessarily a necessary.
Here's the problem with
conversation.
that. Here's the problem is that most of us pick based on our habits. Okay, so most of us pick the way we're going to handle a situation based on the habits. So whenever I tell you, babe, don't say it like that. Don't say it like that. Like, don't speak about the way that I see our disagreements in a negative light. Because you say it in jest, you say it as a joke, but you really think that way. So you're reinforcing the fact that when we have a disagreement or an argument, it is a negative thing, which then translates to you not wanting to have those conversations because you view them as negative. While the other person views those conversations as a lifeboat. If we cannot resolve this situation, then there's going to be a crater-sized hole in my heart because this person is thinking that the resolution of this, though it may come through harsh words, is not worth having.
Wow.
So then you are running away from something that society is deemed as negative. Arguments, disagreements, it's bad. When through that argument is very much the understanding of the other person and a healing that needs to happen. So when I talk about our conversation about the will, you would always get so mad that we couldn't have the conversation. So you would go away thinking, yes, we don't have to have the conversation. I'm out of it now. The tension is gone. There's no more anger. While I'm going away thinking, shit, once again, she's choosing her whole family over me. You feel great that there's no negative tension. The conversation's over. You don't have to deal with it. I went away thinking, this chick dies, I'm fourth in line.
I'm homeless.
Like,
because I gave our home away.
Everything that's important to me, everything that was important to me is not important to her. And that's what I go away with thinking because it has to come through a very difficult conversation. Yeah. So that is why when I call them talkaments or when I call them conversations is because I believe that on the other side of this very difficult conversation lies happiness and understanding and the other person being seen. Yeah. When that is not important anymore, when it is spoken of as negative, then you're never going to get to that revelation. You're always going to run away from the tough conversations. And that is a bad, bad trait to have. It's a bad value.
That's a word. You said something that I've never thought about before, but it is essentially reframing your approach to these conversations. So when your approach feels like, I got to defend myself, I got to get my idea across, whatever, you're essentially seeing this conversation between two people as a race.
Correct.
Who can finish first? Who's the winner? You won. I'm in last place. I lost. When, in fact, the reality of any loving relationship that has trust built in and the intent to grow this together is actually, this conversation is us about building this beautiful cathedral called our relationship or our partnership.
Correct, yeah.
So if you can help reframe your approach to these conversations, it might put you in a place that you are more open to receive what this conversation can bring you.
Exactly. Metaphorically speaking, you're painting the rooms in your house the colors you both want. Remember when I had the freaking the room that was mint green and blue, and you hated walking into that room? You're like, my husband chose this, and every time anybody came over, my husband chose this. This was not me. This was him. So it was a part of our house that she
It was
was
like orange.
embarrassed of.
People go, "Oh, you run a daycare at your house?
She
What
didn't-
is all these primary
didn't
colors
like it.
about?"
Cute little elephant slide.
She hated it. But metaphorically speaking, that's what we're talking about. You know what I'm saying? Like, if you understand that through every conversation and understanding the person more and letting down your ego, letting down your pride, and truly concerning yourself with the other person's happiness, doesn't matter how you feel about it. Excuse me. Because the only thing that you committed to when you got married was that you would put this other person before you.
Mm. Yeah, I gotta
Ask
be
yourself,
better at that.
Ask yourself if you're really putting the other person before you, because that requires you to sometimes shut up instead of talking, humbling yourself instead of letting pride go high, and admitting that you're wrong instead of trying to be right so much.
Yeah.
And in that, you will notice that on the other side of that, you're gonna find that your house is now all the right colors. That there's no room in your house that you're embarrassed of or that you don't want to go into. Those certain arguments are rooms that you don't want to go into your house because they remind you of something. If you ever lost someone, if you ever have triggers, there's places that you don't want to go. Your favorite movie theater that you and your ex used to go to, or your favorite shopping mall, your favorite store, the fragrance. These are all things that remind you of something negative, and so you avoid them. Even though when you were in it, it was your favorite fragrance. So the fragrance didn't change, your perception of it changed. And when you allow your perception to change, then you no longer get to enjoy something that is actually one of your better things in life that you actually really, really enjoyed that made your life better. So for me, I look at all these things that people may look at as negative, and I try to turn them into something that's what it actually is. Sure, it may feel negative. It may sound negative, but it's not negative. This is called building a house. And when you build a house, sometimes you got to jackhammer the foundation. That shit don't sound decent. It doesn't sound awesome when you got to break through concrete,
Yeah, that's not
when you got to
pleasant.
tear down a wall. But what happens? You open up the area, you open up the space, you open up your life, then it flows better. But it takes jackhammering. It takes a big sledgehammer to the freaking wall to build the house that at the end of it, you can sit back and be like, this is the house of my dreams. But it cannot come without those tough conversations that doesn't need to have a right or wrong. Most of our conversations we have are not about right or wrong, but you're conditioned to think it's about him being right and me being wrong. And for me, I think it's about us getting it so that we can build this amazing life together. You know what I'm saying? So that's just, I don't know, that's just how I think.
Yeah. I think even I was saying like, hey, reframing your approach to these conversations on the receiving end, but I think it's also on the giving end in some way. So if you are coming with the approach that you want to be right, you're not in this to build something beautiful together. You're in this to win the race. And again, that's so sad if you're winning this race and your partner is like feeling a certain way, like they're down, they feel discouraged, they feel triggered, all this sorts of stuff. It's like you won, but at what it cost, you know?
Yeah.
What does it profit you to win this conversation, yet lose the trust, the respect, the connection with your person?
And sometimes the person.
Yeah, and sometimes the actual person.
There's been many times where I've been right and alone. And all I have are my stories that I tell my friends.
That is a sword of hell.
You all have this. You all have that one person, and maybe you're that one person that all you do is run your mouth to your friends about all the things the other person did wrong in your relationship. All you can do is see, when was the last time you had a girlfriend or a boyfriend, a homeboy come up to you and be like, yeah, man, we're not together anymore. This, you know, I did a lot of dumb stuff. You know, I didn't listen to her. I didn't whatever. You've never heard that conversation. Everybody comes up to you and all they got is a list of wrongs the other person did. They're doing this. They're doing this. They're doing this. You know, they did this and this is why it didn't work. But there's no self-responsibility. There's no, yeah, but I could have listened. I could have shut my mouth. I didn't have to freaking be right in that one time. I didn't have to care about that thing. And if you were actually honest with yourself, there's a lot of things you don't have to care about, but you make them a point to care about because there's an incessant need to just be right. And for me, it's like, I don't know, it's just not worth it anymore. It's way more fun when we grow than me being like right.
Yeah. I got
Same.
like a less. That's a really good point. I have this story. This was back when I was before Maddie. This is BM before Maddie. Maddie's like the best thing that ever happened to me my entire life for sure. So I was in my last relationship before Maddie, and I had paid for this all vacation to go to Puerto Rico with my girl and some friends. Now again, at this time, I wasn't even balling like that, but I was like, you know what? I'm gonna splurge on you, girl. We're gonna do this. So we go to Puerto Rico, and at that time, I think I'd had some flight miles and I spent some cash or whatever. So we're going, and you know when they're calling out certain like group 1, you can now come and board the plane and stuff. And you know, let's be honest, most of those people don't actually really check what group you're on. Like they're
Right.
not gonna like stop the whole thing and be like, you know what, sir? Actually, you're group 3. We're grouping group 2 right now.
Oh, they do that. Oh no, they do that.
Now they do, right?
Oh, now it's no. I'm sorry. This is probably going against whatever point you're trying to make right now, but it's very much like
Trigger.
First class, step aside, sir. Not me. That's the
Yeah.
I would never.
All right, so excluding first class, for the most part, these like the 2s, the 3s, the 4s, the 5s, the 6s, they kind of blend together. If you're one away,
Sure.
you might be able to hop on the back end. Like you're
Sure.
seeing the end of the line, you're gonna hop in. So that day I was feeling extra bold. I was like, you know what? I'm not trying to wait in the middle of this aisle on this plane. Let me get to my seat comfortably. Let me stow my stuff away. And so I decide, I don't even know what group we're on, but I decide to hop on the back of one of these other groups. So I go, I get checked in, and yada, yada, yada. And I walk on the plane, and I realize my girl isn't behind me at all. And I was like, oh, where did she go? So
She followed the rules.
about 15 to 20 minutes later, I'm sitting in my seat, all settled. You know, I got my snacks out, back and stowed away on the back of the seat. Headphones out.
Neck
And
pillow.
she sits down right here in the middle seat, and she gives me the look. Like, oh, I am so pissed with you right now. I cannot believe you do that. And at this point in my life, I had zero idea what I did. Like, I'm just thinking, all right, what did I say? Lay it on me. I'm sorry, you know? And she's like, you cut in line in front of these other people. Like, this was not your group. You were not supposed to go on there. I was like, I thought you were going to follow me. Like, you should just trust me enough to know that I'm trying to hook us up. I'm trying to get on this plane earlier. And she saw it the complete opposite. She thought like, hey, you're willing to go to this place without me. And it's okay. You didn't even notice I was behind you. Which is true. I didn't.
Yeah.
But at the same time too, like we're sitting in this argument. We're about to go like 4 or 5 days in Puerto Rico. And this argument that we got in, I was so trying to get across my point of like, look, I'm right. You should have just trusted me and followed me. And in her eyes, she was right because she was like, you should have followed the rules. So it sucked because we were in beautiful, beautiful Puerto Rico. You know, the beaches are amazing there and stuff. And so we're there, and this argument hangs over the entire vacation.
Oh, no.
Nobody
She
apologized.
was mad at me. No apologize until probably like it was the 3rd or 4th day, and I was like, hey, I'm sorry. I should have probably looked behind me, and I should have probably waited in line till our turn. I didn't think it was a big deal. So it just sucked because it was like, again, it seems like a very petty thing, but that was what the relationship was. But I was trying so hard to be right, and it ended up ruining this vacation that I had spent a good amount of money on. And it sucked, and it was all for the purpose of what? For me to be right and to prove my point.
You know what's funny? That reminds me of a thing that happened with one of our friends, Josh. I think people don't apologize because they are embarrassed when they're called out. There's this utter amount of embarrassment that happens when someone else points out that you're wrong and you know you're wrong and they pointed it out either in front of people or just period.
Yeah.
You are utterly embarrassed
Yeah.
that, yeah, they're 100% right. But I got 2 options. I'm either going to admit it and be embarrassed, or I'm gonna fight back.
Yeah.
And
Double down.
hopefully,
I'm going to double down and rationalize my bullshit.
and hopefully they'll stop. They won't be able to out argue me, because that happened once with our friend when he went into an ice cream shop. I think it was an ice cream shop or something. And he's usually good at, he just makes jokes, and it's very, very, sometimes it can be half racist and half just very offensive. And so he makes this like racist and offensive joke at the same time. And
Sheesh.
we go out and Ange calls him on it.
Uh-huh.
And I see it in his face. He gets utterly embarrassed because he knows she's 100% right.
Yeah.
But then what comes out of his mouth is he basically calls Angela a B. Stop acting like a B. Because he was so embarrassed, he acted out of character and he doubled down and never apologized.
Yeah.
It took a good minute for him to let the embarrassment wear off and be like, hey, I probably shouldn't have said that.
Yeah.
Now, I didn't take it personal. Usually a guy would have flipped his wit. I know you just called my wife that, but I'm like, I saw it all happening as it's happening. I'm like, I know why he's doing it. He's going to feel really bad about this.
Yeah.
I know it. But I know that it's not a thing that we like to do, that when we do something wrong, someone points it out, we know it's wrong, we feel embarrassed, we feel a little bit of shame. We don't want to stay under that and admit it and take whatever comes because of our acceptance of what we did.
Yeah.
And that may be you look stupid for a minute. People may make fun of you. Someone may have something over you, whatever it is. And instead of doing the right thing, it's easier to double down and just fight the embarrassment. You know what I'm saying? Which is what it sounds like.
Yeah. And the thing is, in that moment, I lacked the maturity to ask myself a couple questions. Is, what if I am wrong right now?
Mm.
Like, what if I'm legitimately wrong in my stance? I didn't even think about that. And if I could take that a little bit further, I'd ask myself, what would it mean right now if I were wrong? Because the answer to that question would have actually been something that would strengthen our relationship.
Yeah.
If I was wrong right now, me and Christy would probably be a lot tighter right now in this trip that we have planned. And then the other thing, too, that would be even a step on what if it means if I'm wrong, but would be this. It would be, would being wrong create a better or a worse problem than my current problem for both myself and others? So the goal is to look at what's the better problem here. Because if I choose to be wrong and just accept it, take the blow of that, all of a sudden now our connection is better. And now we will have a better problem to have to address in our relationship.
Yeah.
So that's really what it is. And I lacked the maturity in that moment because I was just doubling down. I was like, no, I'm right. You know,
But that's
you're
such
wrong.
a good question to ask yourself in those moments. If I am wrong in this, what is the worst that's going to happen? Like,
Yeah.
what is the good and what is the bad?
Yeah.
Because I think most of the times when we think of the bad, the only thing that we're going to be able to put in that column is that I'm wrong.
Yeah.
Not that something horrible happens to me, but just that I have to admit that I'm wrong. And I really do think there's this thing in our mind, and it lets you know what kind of relationship you're in. That if you think that other person's going to hold it over you, you really need to question
Yeah.
who you're with.
If you have to
Or-
question, yeah.
Or what it is that's going in your heart and your mind that makes you triggered like that. Because maybe that person ain't doing nothing to you, but you just have a trigger.
Yeah.
Yep. All
Absolutely.
good stuff.
Why you quiet? You so quiet, babe.
I'm doing a lot of listening.
Why though?
I said I contributed.
Okay.
Yeah.
I love
I'll
you.
leave you with this last thought. For anything to change, for any change to happen in your life, you have to be wrong about something.
Yeah.
For any change to happen in your life, you have to be wrong about something. So, next time you're approaching conversation, argument, heated debate, discussion, just know for any change to happen, you have to be wrong about something. So,
That's good.
Mm-hmm.
Let that sizzle on the spirit, as
Let
Country Wayne would say. Hey, we love you guys, man. We can go on and on about this. Hey, if you're listening to this, send us some DMs on Instagram or on Facebook. P.S. We do have a Facebook group that is a Knights at the Round Table Facebook group. If you guys want to jump on there and talk to each other about the episodes, that'll be amazing. If you're watching this on YouTube, please like, subscribe, share, all that good stuff. And if you're on Apple or Spotify or Amazon, all those other good things, man, subscribe. All of it helps. We truly appreciate you guys. And let us know what your thoughts are on this topic. It would be great to hear from you so that we can know how to further assess what kind of topics we're going to talk about in the future. So, like we always say at this time, I turn the shine. Sorry, I'm
Throw
sorry.
your hands up in the sky.
We really do pray that you find a seat at the table. But if you don't, you are honestly
it's
welcome at ours.
Cheers.
We love you guys.
Cheers. I was gonna say it with you, and then you chose a different word.